Hello and welcome back to the Sago Show, where we dig into the stories behind Filipino food. This is the second episode in this season, which is all about coconuts. And if you haven't watched episode 1, where we made coconut milk adobo tofu and talked about why the Philippines produces so many coconuts, just click on the link that will appear right now and make sure to catch up. But today we are going to make biko, and I have talked about this before on Instagram, but biko is like the thing that I'm grabbing from the dessert table at a party. As in, once dinner starts at the party, I'm gonna make sure I can graze the dessert table and get pieces of biko to have with dinner. And today we are going to be making an Ube Biko. So first we're going to wash 2 cups of sweet rice or glutinous rice. And that's because 1, I have a pretty small kitchen, so I don't have room for a lot of different appliances. And 2, it's just me and my husband, so this makes enough rice for both of us. So once the rice is washed and drained, we're gonna add 1 cup of coconut milk and 1 cup of water. If you do the finger trick and that's not enough liquid, you can also add a little bit more milk or water. Then I'm going to put this on the stovetop, add 2 pandan leaves, give this a nice stir, and then just basically cook your rice. Next, I'm gonna take there's an extra one, just 1 banana leaf and spray way too much canola oil on it accidentally. And then that's gonna go in my round baking dish. At this point now, you'll see that our rice is done, so I'm going to turn the heat off and remove the pandan leaves. Now in my large pan, we're going to add 4 cups of coconut milk and bring this to a simmer. Now, if you watched the last episode, you know that we talked about how the Philippines has this really mineral-rich volcanic soil and sea salt that allows coconut trees to grow in a really ideal environment. But today, we're gonna actually talk about why the coconut industry is really in danger. By the way, we're gonna add 2 cups of brown sugar and dissolve this through. The thing is that right now, the coconut trees in the Philippines are reaching an old age. Coconut trees just don't bear the same amount of fruit for forever and all eternity. And a large number of coconut trees in the Philippines were actually planted a half-century ago post-World War II, back when copra, which is the oil that is extracted from coconut husks, was in really high demand until the 1980s. And at the time, copra was the main oil source in the world. And coconut trees are in their peak years when they're between 10 and 30 years old, because when they're at that age, they can produce hundreds of coconuts per year. But many of the coconut trees in the Philippines are pretty far out of that age range, meaning they're not producing as many coconuts. And so what does that mean when your coconut farm is your livelihood? We have 3.5 million coconut farmers in the Philippines who are faced with that threat. Also, once you have this beautifully thickened brown sugar mixture, you are now ready to add your sticky rice. It's a little bit hard for me to tell you exactly how long it takes before you should add your sticky rice because it really depends on your coconut milk and how watery it is. And now I'm gonna make sure that the rice is really well incorporated. My mouth is totally watering looking at this right now. And since we're making an Ube Biko, I'm adding 2 teaspoons of ube extract. You'll see that I'm adding 1 teaspoon now and I add 1 later on to make sure that I get it super purple and also have a really strong ube flavor. Okay, so we've got many aging coconut trees in the Philippines that are out of their fruit-bearing prime as one threat to coconut production, but I also want to bring up a second big threat, the palm oil industry. While several decades ago coconut oil was the main global oil source, now it's palm oil. And palm oil is already huge. It's considered more efficient to produce, and already in the Philippines, farms that used to have coconut trees are being replaced with palm plantations and processing facilities. And economics-wise, I guess, it's more lucrative to produce palm oil than to produce coconut oil. Because while 95% of coconut farms are run by smallholders who are more likely to rely on the government for assistance, 60% of palm oil is generated by huge companies and estates who require far less government support. And since palm oil is already surging, it's putting more pressure to lower coconut prices, which means that the industry is far less lucrative for the farmer who is getting already very little to produce the raw material. Once the rice reaches this texture where I like to say it's more globby than watery, I am putting it in my banana leaf lined pan and making sure that everything is nicely spread out. It's taking everything out of me to not just take a spoonful of this because I really feel like this is basically ube champurrado, but with coconut milk right now. But we still have to make the latik. Basically, you add 1 can of coconut milk to the pan and just heat it through on medium-low heat until we get curds, which you will see gradually happen right now. Because I still need to talk about these threats to the coconut industry. We have coconut trees aging, and we have palm oil as an industry that's ready to wipe out small farmers. And there are 3.5 million smallholder coconut farmers in the Philippines. So with the livelihoods of these farmers in danger, there is fortunately work being done by organizations like the Grameen Foundation, who helps enable coconut farmers with technology, and a German-based organization, GIZ, as well as the Rainforest Alliance, who are working with the smallholder farmers on sustainable coconut oil supply chain. I know this is kind of a lot and probably stuff you don't really want to think about, but that's why I wanted to talk about it. When we walk down the aisle at the grocery store and pick up our coconut milk and coconut flakes and coconut water, there is a cost that goes way beyond that item's price tag. And also, now the latik is finished, so you'll notice that gradually the coconut milk turned into these toasty colored crispy curds, which you can just separate from the oil with a coffee strainer. Then we can cut the biko, and I'm going to go for an X or diagonal cut. And I'm gonna add a spoonful of latik on top of each bite. Without coconut milk, we wouldn't have biko. And I don't even want to think about a world without the deliciousness and stickiness and sweetness of a good, warm Ube Biko. Which actually makes me wonder, do other people like cold Biko or warm Biko? Let me know your preference in the chat. I'm definitely a warm Biko person. Also, I experimented with frying the Biko, kind of like an arancini, so if you're interested in a video on that, let me know in the comments. If you liked this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up because it lets me know what you like, and make sure to subscribe so that you can stay tuned for my next episode. Now, I'm gonna finish my Biko. For now, salamat.